Another big story for Breakfast Extra. I'm hoping it's going to be an explosive conversation here. Rivers State finds itself at a political crossroad as the impeachment process against Governor Siminalayi Fubara intensifies. Now, the People's Democratic Party in the state is bitterly divided, while the opposition party, the APC, has vowed to frustrate the process. The shutdown is not merely a local crisis. It reflects deeper fractures within parties and has implications for governance and also constitutional order in Nigeria. The clash began with accusations of maladministration and internal PDP disagreements. Fubara's relationship with party kingpins deteriorated into public conflict, prompting moves to remove him from office. Now, in response, the APC has pledged to impede the impeachment, framing it as politically motivated and an abuse of legislative power. The situation raises urgent questions about party discipline, the rule of law, and whether political strategy now overweighs institutional respect.
And of course, to unpack this with us, we're joined by Opunabo Inko-Tariah, civil rights advocate, and Liborous Oshoma, lawyer and political analyst. And of course, we have Comrade Ruben Izu Jr. Gentlemen, welcome to Breakfast Extra. And let's start by examining the roots of this power struggle. And, you know, I always tell Mazino, this feels like a marriage issue. But I'm going to start with you, Mr. Inko-Tariah. Can you just tell us, in your view, what would you say are the characteristics that's underlying the causes of this impeachment effort against Governor Fubara?
Thank you very much. The recrudescence of what I refer to as political spasm is highly lamentable, very regrettable. But let me say that I'm not fazed at all by the bombastic effusion of befuddled legislators, which I dismiss as legislative halitosis. Let's take the issues under advisement. They are talking of remuneration for the legislative, what's it called again? Council or whatever it is that is those working in the legislative arm. Let us also not forget that vows was the sole administrator of the state for 6 months. And within the 6 months, everything that was due the legislators were paid. Cars were even released to them. That is number one. Number two, if you also talk of the, what is it called again, budget presentation. Abbas presented budgets to the president, who presented the budget to the National Assembly, and it was passed, which is now a law. That budget is in effect, and it is subsisting. The governor has up to June or July or thereabout to present a budget. That is another angle to be raised. And I think they're talking of re-election of the governor, that the governor signed and agreed that he wasn't going to be re-elected. I mean, that suffers from eclipse of reason and poverty of logic. And I believe that that agreement was a nullity. Well, Liborous is there. When you talk of a nullity in law, you're talking of void. But when you talk of a nullity in English, you're actually saying worthless and not important. You cannot deny a governor his constitutional right. Now, what is the basis of all these crises? It's simple. Even Joseph Wike himself had said that the victory of Governor Fubara in 2027 is tantamount to his political death. It will lead to his political nadir. That is his fear. So it's more or less egocentric. It really has nothing. It has no nexus with the performance of the governor. Preceding the declaration of a state of emergency, we saw the governor on a construction frenzy, working at a frenetic pace, commissioning projects, he paid salaries, increased salaries. He has also addressed the problems of Rivers persons in terms of scholarship and so many other things that are just too numerous to mention. Things that we never witnessed in the 8 years of years of his own wiki. His kids studied abroad. And I remember, then I was still a special advisor, when he said, when he canceled all the scholarship that his predecessor awarded, I'm talking about Rotimi Amechi, and even went on air to say that he could not fathom why anybody would send anybody abroad on scholarship to study law or any of the asked causes, because his kids studied law abroad. And most of those whose scholarships were cancelled, some committed suicide, some are frustrated. Just only few were able to be enrolled again in Nigerian universities and they probably would have completed their studies. And if you also talk, there are so many other things he raised. He talked of the sack of the chief of staff to the governor. Is that not the godfatherism? Is that not the pestilence of godfatherism? Even those that are going to work with him, you are going to dictate. He also said certain persons must not be seen with the governor. What kind of life is that? Is the governor incarcerated? The governor will have no free hand to do what he wants to do as a governor. And at the end of the 4 years or 8 years, as the case will be, you will find out that it is not just on Wike that people will blame or give credit to, but the governor himself. What of his legacy? They have forgotten all about that. And let me quickly say this, that the support the governor has is purely organic. I must tell you that even if Nyesom Wike contests, it's on the ballot with the governor of Rivers State in 2027. As we speak right now, the governor, Siminalayi Fubara, will beat Nyesom Wike. He will beat him at the polls because Rivers persons are extremely happy with what the governor is doing for Rivers State.
Sarah, please do remind me, were you once the spokesperson for Nyesom Wike?
Yes, I was studying advisor on media and publicity. Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out. Liborous, you were chuckling.
You know, I read that. You know that. You know that. You know that.
Well, let's put that forward. Let's put that forward. Let's get concept here. Liborous, you were chuckling from before. Now, Liborous, I'm coming to you now. I heard you chuckling while Mr. Inko-Tariah was giving his submission there, but I wanted to ask you a specific question here regarding Rivers politics. We thought that when Fubara moves over to the APC, he'd be in good company. But it seems like it's no longer ideology, it's now a personality battle, where people are still very, very faithful to one particular person. So my question now is, how is this going to translate where he is, even within the APC, still finding himself having to fight with certain factions? What does this spell for his governance henceforth? And is the House within the legal threshold when it comes to the impeachment process they've put forward?
Yeah, that's a hydra-headed question, but I will attempt to start from the last one, then I move to let me start from the legal one, within the threshold of the House impeachment, because the Supreme Court had defined misconduct to be what the House of Assembly terms misconduct. But in defining misconduct, even though the Supreme Court had said, you know, what the House of Assembly would term misconduct, but also reasonability would also have to come into misconduct. You can't say, for example, because the governor refused to greet the speaker and then it is misconduct. So that's, be that as it may, that's why the powers to impeach are not domiciled within one arm of government. It is clearly, you know, the other two arms of government, you know, constitutionally checkmating the powers of the executive. So if you look at the Section 188 that has been in debate, you know, since this started, clearly the chief judge of the state is also involved, and then, you know, an unbiased personnel also are involved in this process. So while the House of Assembly is clearly within the legal ambit to, you know, serve a notice to debate impeachment processes, then it is not solely rested within the doorstep of the House of Assembly or some other factors, you know, like the chief judge, even though the House of Assembly will spell out the terms of engagement of that panel, which will have about 3 months within which to file in a report. But clearly, they must be unbiased and will now be the one to perform a quasi-judicial function to investigate what is termed misconduct. And I want to also borrow a leaf from what my friend Opunabo Inko-Tariah, you know, had said. And that's why I chuckled when he was saying that the budget passage, talking about budget passage and local government autonomy and the rest. Because initially, when the notice where it was debated and they're talking about extrajudicial, extra budgetary spending, I had thought that the initial budget passed had been exhausted and the government was just spending, the governor was spending money without appropriation. But when I listened to the spokesperson of the House of Assembly, I've forgotten his name right now, the young man, and I was a bit taken aback, because what he said was that the budget passed by the administrator, when the governor came back, they knew that they felt that that budget did not cover the plans and programs of the governor. So they had requested the governor to bring, prepare and bring another budget for their passage. The question I would ask, not just as a lawyer, but as a reasonable man, is, do you determine what the governor's plans and program is? If a budget is in operation, would it not be proper for the governor to expend that budget with the plans and programs inherent in it? Are we also saying that that budget passed by the administrator, where allowances and salaries of lawmakers were paid, backlog of those allowances were paid? Are we saying the budget did not capture plans and programs or in the River State? Is it out of place for the governor to implement that budget to a logical conclusion? So these are questions the House of Assembly didn't answer. And then talking about local government autonomy. Local government autonomy, we know by the judgment of the Supreme Court, the funds are supposed to be paid directly by the federal government. And if the federal government had not been paying the funds directly to the local government, whose responsibility should that be? Should that be that of the state governor? Should it be the governor's responsibility of ensuring that this fund comes directly? The local government, the president had said, had issued directive that local government should go register with the open account with central bank in their jurisdiction. If the local government had not done that, it is their problem. And if they had done that and the federal government had not been remitting funds directly to them, it is not a challenge for the state governor. So because when I also, another thing is that, why I also chuckled was I heard the outburst of the speaker, that Fubara is the worst person to have happened to democracy, and they are calling their leader now, Inko-Tariah's former boss, Wike, who is helping Mr. President in Abuja. And I laugh and I ask myself, who should be blamed for being anti-democratic? Because Wike had boasted that he bought the forms for all of the members of the House of Assembly, bought forms for the governor, bought forms for senators and the House of Rep. Nobody's asking, the taxman is not asking him, where are your tax returns? How much are your earnings to have been able to buy forms for everybody? Where did the money come from? Nobody's anti-democratic forces. And then the governor, the speaker, clearly, betrayed his emotions when he started talking about, no, this is not about our leader who is helping. And then you ask, if your leader is truly helping the president in Abuja, what has he been doing in River State, going around shouting, agreement is agreement? And like I said somewhere else, what our Gen Z called cho-cho-cho. When Ambode had problem with the current president, who was a former leader, we didn't hear him shout agreement is agreement from Agege to
Oshoma.
Victoria Island local government. Sorry, quickly, please. We didn't hear Mr. President then, as leader of APC, go everywhere, shout agreement is agreement. He spoke on the day of primaries and he spoke loud. I'm not saying that a governor should renege on agreement signed. But if the agreement had to do, if it's a fundamental, because Inko-Tariah asked me this question, if the agreement is fundamental and touches on the core of his constitutional obligation as a citizen to contest or not to contest, that cannot be wished away by an agreement. It's a constitutional right. A constitutional right cannot be taken away by an agreement. And even if, certainly, it's something that can be managed and something that can be discussed and negotiated, it has nothing clearly to do with, gross misconduct. And lastly on this, it is obvious that Nyesom Wike is scared, is panicking, and so that is why you see him, running from pillar to post, and this third impeachment move is initiated against the governor. This clearly has nothing to do with the ordinary person in River State.
In a roundabout way and in a summary, you're saying that these concerns might be valid from the House. However, it seems that it's also a mechanism for destabilizing Fubara's government. Am I correct?
Yes, what I'm saying is, I looked at it, that's why I took my time to look at the concerns.
I just want
because they are hinging it on gross misconduct. Why it is their constitutional responsibility, why it is within their right to define gross misconduct.
Yes.
Also, it is within our right as analysts to also look at the issues one after the other, to say these issues that you're identifying as gross misconduct are clearly not gross misconduct.
Obviously, there's so much to talk about, so we're going to go on a break now. When we come back, we're also going to ask the comrade a few questions regarding this, but more on the details that you have just given. Let's go on a short break, gentlemen. We'll be right back. Do stay with us. And you're welcome back. We're still having our conversation regarding Rivers State and exactly everything that's happening inside of it, as we have heard from the past week, which is only just 1 week into 2026, and it seems to be taking the lion's share of conversations when it comes to political discourse. We still have our guests here with us. Comrade Ruben Izu Jr. is joining us, as well as Mr. Liborous Oshoma, and of course, Opunabo Inko-Tariah. All three gentlemen are available. Comrade Ruben, you've heard the two first speakers, and I was wondering what you think. Now, Mr. Oshoma actually touched on something very interesting, and before he did, I was going to come to you and ask you anything about history, if we have seen this kind of instance anywhere in Nigerian politics from before, and what the fallout was. Do you have any suggestions regarding historical relevance to what we see now in Rivers State? Comrade Ruben.
I want us to stick to the subject matter, and we should be issue-based on them. And if you talk about history, if you look at the scenarios across the federation, if you talk about history currently, what is happening in Rivers State about the impeachment process, I want to ask some of them who have spoken, have they also gone through history to know what happened about impeachment in other states like Ekiti, other states like Plateau, other states like Bayelsa, and co, and what was the issue? What was the bone of contention in these other states? I don't think this is the first impeachment involved in politics. And besides, if I may ask them, for my friend is a lawyer, and then Opunabo Inko-Tariah has been in the business for a while. Is an impeachment a coup? Is an impeachment an illegal proceedings coming from the state assembly or even the National Assembly? The answer is no. So I don't know why anyone will fume at such. You have the right to go to the security agencies to report if you have any issues against anyone that have violated your right or the Constitution. And it is in the place of the security agencies to investigate. I don't know why we are all jumping into the fray and saying things ordinarily we shouldn't even say. I'm even going as far as being personal. That's what, for me, I think is out of the subject matter which we are discussing. Now, for Rivers State as a state, we haven't had this to the extent it is going on currently. But a quick reminder, in the 2014, approaching the 2015 election, you remember there was also an impeachment plot that also went viral. And the then governor, talking about Right Honorable Rotimi Amechi, stormed as a governor, stormed the assembly complex. What was the bone of contention? We shouldn't forget so easily. Politics has to do with power struggle. And power struggle, they claim, they say no permanent friend, no permanent enemy. What is permanent in the class of politicians is what they call interest. And once this interest clashes, then you begin to see tussle obvious to the public. What you said earlier on concerning Ambode is about power tussle. It's about power tussle. What you do, even as a lawyer, he knows no two cases are the same. I may not approach my own case the way you want to approach yours. So you don't expect the same approach to different issues, or perhaps the same issues. So in history, there has been impeachment in the country. In history, there has been an attempt of impeachment in Rivers State. So for this one, for me, I believe, like I said earlier, I don't want us to talk personal. The state assembly members have heard exactly what is their grounds with the governor, and they are voluminous in a public document before the state the governor. I expect ordinarily that that should be attended to. If they have alleged that the governor, for anything that anybody has said that is personal, like I said earlier on, I want to ask a simple question. Any Have you seen any content in that very document that refers to the FCT minister? Have you studied that document concretely and you observe that there is anything personal, emotional in that very document? Like he referred to the budget passed by the National Assembly for ABAS. Now the State Assembly, in a norm, they are to check and balance each other. Now the State Assembly have seen the emergence, the coming back of the governor with what the State Assembly, National Assembly has passed for the previous administrator will not encompass what the governor wants to do. And let me tell you, we are only speaking as analysts. Some of us are not in tune with what is happening. The State Assembly may have looked inward and discovered that the governor, how did they get the fact? That's what some persons do not want to ask. How do they have the fact that the governor has outspent what was provided in that very budget and thereby requesting for a supplementary budget? These are questions we need to ask. And the only person that could answer this question that has been asked by the Assembly is the governor. Why don't we allow him? It's a normal legal process. In the Constitution, they are doing their jobs, calling and checking the governor. Let the governor answer to the questions. And like the Speaker said, let me not, I'm not speaking for the Speaker, but like the Speaker said, let there be nothing but investigation. After the investigation, if the allegations are not founded, then let the legislative business and the executive business commence as usual. There is no crime in what the Assembly members have done. We found out that the governor have done XYZ, and you also forgot, they also alleged to the fact that commissioners that are ought to be screened by the State Assembly have now been passed as essays to the governor, and they are doing the functions that are ought to be done by those who are supposed to go through the screening of the State Assembly. But at the end of the day, it is permanent secretaries of the various parastatals that are signing. They made so weighty allegations. Why are we not allowing them to do their jobs? Where is the FCT minister in part of the allegations that have been leveled against the governor? We should be up and doing in all these whole things. Let us be issue-based, objective.
Okay. Comrade, thank you so much. I can see the passion in which you responded to Mazino's question, and I think I just want to ask Mr. Inko-Tariah. I think for me, the details of this situation is so broad and is so deep. And
I mean, it was very soon. You told me there's no time. So that certain issues can be addressed. Yeah.
oh,
Number
Mr.
one, when you talk of appointments, when you talk of appointment of appointees, when you talk of the appointees, the governor only appointed special advisors. And the special advisors appointed, you have the number of special advisors to be ratified by the State House Assembly. It did not exceed that number. You don't go back. If the Assembly approves 10, 15, 20 special advisors, it is within the governor's virus to ensure that it doesn't exceed the 10, 15, or 20 special advisors. But the House of Assembly will not tell him the numbers, the person to be appointed as special advisor, and he does not also need to go back to the House of Assembly when the special advisor is appointed. Then number two, you have two. The Constitution says there are two persons that must be appointed. You are talking of the Secretary to the State Government. You're also talking of the Attorney General of the state or Attorney General of the Federation. The issue of the Attorney General, what the governor did was a minor cabinet reshuffle, which is also within the rights of the governor. He moved the Commissioner for Sports to Minister of Justice. He doesn't need the clearance of the House of Assembly to do that in terms of minor cabinet reshuffle. That is the second one. Then he also raised the issue of I've forgotten again, if you could remind me. I want to address just because you said we should just be on point. I want to address those issues you raised. If you can jog my memory a little, I'm a little bit under the weather. If you jog my memory a little, yes, I'll address those issues, please. And there are about two or three other issues I would have liked to address.
He also talked about the governor having his day to be able to tell or to defend as well, if I'm correct, Mr. Rubin.
No, that's his right when it comes to that. I'm not bothered about that. Okay. I'm talking of the other. There are raised about three salient points that I need to address. If you can remember, please, quickly.
I can't at this moment, but why don't you continue? Maybe if it comes up, I will remind you. Okay, so while you're remembering that, I also saw Mr. Liborous actually shift in his chair while Comrade Rubin was speaking.
Okay,
Mr. Liborous,
let him go ahead.
why don't you go ahead for now? Yes.
Now, what I said is this. I initially said, I want us to be issue-based And upon show,
No, I said I understood that.
Just a second.
Okay, let us go back to the
assembly-
impeachment.
Sorry, please.
What the assembly members have
Just a second. Just a second.
Ambode's case was not a matter of impeachment. Ambode was, his re-election was truncated by the president, Bola Tinubu, before he became president, not necessarily by President Bola. But he actually stimulated that effort because of the same pestilence of godfatherism I talk about. Then again, it is within the right of the House of Assembly or National Assembly to impeach and also remove if the grounds of impeachment are valid. Nevertheless, that right is supposed to be exercised prudently. Now, you talked of Alamesa, Bayelsa, you talked of Daria and Co. In the case of Alamesa, you have just 5 persons impeaching and removing Alamesa. Is that constitutional? In the case of Daria, the same thing. So are we going to continue in error? That is the point I'm making. And don't forget that as citizens, it is within our right also to analyze issues because these issues affect us as citizens. So you cannot say we should not talk on these important issues, then let us leave it to the government to address. No, that is not done. You sit down here and condemn the president or applaud the president for tax reforms and what have you. So the same right we have to also speak on issues. Our views on this issue will not definitely affect the outcome. But this is how we think. And it is the citizens' right to also think so.
All right, Mr. Inko-Tariah.
So that it is wrong in other states that what they did is
Mr. Inko-Tariah, we're trying to manage time. We're trying to manage time, sir. If you don't mind, I would like Mr. Liborous to actually give his submission now, because I've been seeing you staring since.
Yes, I want to. I without trying to be personal, I quite. I feel the comrade, while trying to defend the indefensible, said we shouldn't discuss personality. I didn't bring personality into the discussion. It was the speaker who brought personality into the discussion. As an analyst, I will be doing my constituency a disservice by not addressing such statement when he said it has nothing to do with their leader, who is helping Mr. President in Abuja. That's his statement, not mine. Secondly, also, I would also be doing the public who are relying on me to help them break down these issues a disservice by not looking at the items itemized by the State House of Assembly, which I've also looked at, and I said it is within their right to define what gross misconduct is, but also it is within the right of the public to look at what gross misconduct should be. Also, it is not me who also went around local government by local government shouting agreement is agreement. You can't also begin to talk about why you agree that every political move should be different from the other. But here you are saying that I shouldn't talk about the move being adopted by Nyesom Wike. And then when we talk about impeachment, legally speaking, let me explain this. All of those impeachment that you refer to, before now, it was the intention or the belief of the State House of Assembly that by virtue of subsection 10, the jurisdiction of the court had been ousted. And so once that process is concluded, that the court cannot question it. But in the case of Ladoja, if you remember, also followed by the case of Peter Obi, which stalled the gale of impeachment we were saying, the kangaroo process of impeachment, the Court of Appeal and then also allowed by the Supreme Court heard that you must comply strictly with the provisions of subsection 1 to 9 of section 188 before you begin to invoke subsection 10. And even invoking subsection 10, the court will have to first assume jurisdiction to see if you have complied with the laid down procedures. So it is not enough to say once a House of Assembly, initiate impeachment proceedings, then we shouldn't look at it and we shouldn't talk about it. Even when the House of Assembly is trying to pull a wool over our eyes and we shouldn't look at the issues. Certainly, these are issues within the public domain. If it is something we shouldn't be discussing, then certainly, then the House of Assembly would not even be in existence. Also, you talk about the budget, the issue of budget. While it is within his right as a comrade to talk about what the House of Assembly might have noticed, the House of Assembly did not, in all honesty, after listening to them, say that they noticed that the budget had been expended. No, that's not their statement. Let us not put statements that are not in the public domain out there. What they said, if you listen to the spokesperson of the House of Assembly, he said they felt that that budget did not cover, or probably didn't cover, some areas, some plans and programs of the governor. Plans and programs of the governor. So you now begin to ask yourself, is it in the place of the House of Assembly to ask, to know what the plans and programs of the governor is, or is the governor not lettered enough to know what his plans and programs is? So these are the issues. An attempt to take us away from discussing the issues. My friend and brother, comrade Ruben, is saying we should discuss issues. What we are clearly discussing are the issues. That's why I have itemized. And I also have said, I do not support somebody breaching an agreement that you have reached. I would not sit down here and support Fubara to say, breach an agreement you have reached with your godfather. I am one person who likes loyalty. Wike had assisted you to become a governor. Out of all the people in Rivers State, it is the same way that others have become governor that you became a governor. But if that agreement is hinging on his constitutional right whether to contest or not to contest, allow the party members take that decision during the primaries. It is not within Wike's right as a person to say, because you have breached an agreement, then I am the Lord of the Manor, I'm the Emperor, I am the Lion, I'm the Conqueror, and I must decide what happens. That is not party democracy as practiced in Nigeria and world over. That's why I refer to the case of Ambode and Tinubu. Tinubu, we also saw, he was the leader of the party at that time. He decided, even when we knew that the decision was his, but you saw during the primaries, he said that I am a leader, but I have followers with me. But in this case, it is Wike that is the leader, he is the follower, he's everything. And so when you hear him talk, all the followers simply do is to koto and re-echo what he has said. There is no, if Wike had not started that discussion and those visits and mounting the podium, I will not support Fubara, I will not do this, agreement is agreement, and then the House of Assembly had come with this, nobody would have been discussing Wike. So my message to Ruben, to pass to him, is that he should learn to be circumspect and he should learn to be reticent in some cases, even though I will not advise him how to play his own politics.
Right.
So you cannot tell me not to discuss Wike when the speaker brought Wike into the fold.
Yes. Comrade Ruben, I see that you want to respond, but before you respond, Mr. Oshoma, I just wanted to ask that, can the court intervene without being accused of judicial overreach in this situation?
The court cannot intervene at this stage because that would be judicial overreaching. This is clearly an act of the legislature. It is clearly an act of a State House of Assembly. Until that act is concluded, there is nowhere in Section 180 that empowers, or in Section 6 of the Constitution that empowers the court to intervene at this stage, because that would be overreaching the powers of the legislature. The court will wait for the legislature to do its business and then evoke subsection 10 to look at what has been done. At this stage, there's nothing that can be done. Whether Fubara responds or not, in the next 14 days, the House of Assembly is going to take a debate whether the matter should be investigated or not. And once that debate scales through by 2/3 majority, then the Speaker will write to the State Chief Judge to constitute a panel of 7 of unbiased persons with integrity, who are not partisan, who are not civil servants, to investigate this allegation. And that's why I said that it is not clearly within the domain of the House of Assembly to determine alone what gross misconduct is. The public, look, let me tell you also, there are 2 courts, the court of law and the court of public opinion. There is no way today you can take away the decisions and the mindset of the court of public opinion, even though we wait for the court of law. So we're in the court of public opinion, and decision, certainly to a very large extent in the court of public opinion, also have a way of influencing, political decisions and ideology.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Liborous Oshoma. That was quite a mouthful. Comrade Ruben, let me come to you and ask you now, if everything that Mr. Liborous Oshoma has actually stated here is something to go by you, I'm wondering where we separate violations, and I mean constitutional violations like the sorts that are being brought against Fubara, from personality, loyalty when it comes to allegiances or alliances with political figures. Where and how do we separate these two? And you can also choose to respond to Mr. Oshoma.
You're just asking me. Barrister, you are just being economical with the truth. In as much as you have made your points, you know you can't school me concerning the points I have made because they are very much there. You are not just in tune with what is in the public domain. The document is there, and we all have gone through the document. I am not speaking from my own personal view. That's why I said, let's leave it. You said it clearly. It is clearly a constitutional issue, and the State Assembly has its right to go through that. That's why I said, from what they have outlined, alleging that the governor has misappropriated funds in the way they have outlined it in several ways, I ask a simple question. Is there any content in that document that mentioned the name of the FCT minister or loyalty or disagreement in any which way? They outline things that you and we are not in the State Assembly. We are not in the realms of the State Assembly state. And those who actually checkmate the governor, those who actually are to check and balance things as constitutionally required, have come out to tell you. It's just like when the security agency said, you have a case to answer in the police. Are you the one to determine to the police what should make you go to the police station to respond to them or not? Go there and find out whatever they have alleged against you. And if it is not weighty, you have yourself to be bailed or contact your lawyer. It's as simple as anything. But be that as it may, I want to respond to what you said earlier on. There is no sentiment. You know, and ignorance is a lawyer. Ignorance to the law is not an excuse. Now, a lot of persons have looked at the public appearance of the minister and his statement. This is pure politics. He has made mention of 2026 will be a politics year, a year of politicking. And he chose to do politics the way he has to do it, and it's within his right. I don't think he's campaigning as against the guideline of INEC. He is not campaigning. He is on the thank you tour. And that is not in any way has to do with what the Assembly has done. I listened clearly when the spokesperson to the State Assembly was being interviewed on channels. And clearly he said it without number.
Now, Comrade Ruben, my apologies, but we have to manage time here, and I really want to know what Mr. Inko-Tariah has to say here. He was the former spokesperson for the FCT minister, and I'm wondering whether in this case, the case of the impeachment, if he sees an influence by the FCT minister, maybe he can put that to rest for us since he's worked with him. Mr. Inko-Tariah, what do you think?
It is irrefragable that the FCT minister is the one orchestrating all this. The man has said it, that the re-election of Fubara is tantamount to his political debt. It will lead to his political nadir. And therefore, Fubara must not return. He has said it. The Speaker of the House, who made reference to Nyesom Wike, had no business making reference to Nyesom Wike if Nyesom Wike was not the one influencing them. Why try to divorce Nyesom Wike from the crisis that is going on in the state? It's simply because the world knows that Nyesom Wike is the one, is the brain, the bulwark, the one behind all what is going on in Rivers State, simply because of the problem he has with Fubara. And actually, what is that problem? Do not appoint this. Whatever you have to do, let me know. I am supposed to be in charge. I mean, we all are aware of this. Don't, okay, let us even forget all that. This might be repudiated in public. The issue of re-election. You say agreement is agreement. We agree. At what point did you agree to start it? Because when you said you helped him emerge as the governor of Rivers State, at that point you did not agree. You only agreed after you had issues and the president intervened. So are you going to shift the goalpost midway? Are you also, you say because, okay, I ask a simple question. Because you helped to finance my wedding, are you going to sleep with my wife? Or even if I agree with you that if you give me X amount, you will allow you to sleep with my wife, if you finance my wedding, then after that, you're going to come back to say we had an agreement that after financing your wedding, I'm going to sleep with your wife. I mean, some of an eclipse of reason and poverty of logic. It is so fatuous for anybody to think that way. This is the man's constitutional right. If you're not happy with him, I don't have a problem with that. Go and work against his re-election. That's all you need to do. And this one is saying, no, rather than go trying to work against his re-election, you're trying to truncate and tell him not to contest at all. Because you know that Rivers persons will come out and mass to vote for Siminalayi Fubara should he be on the ballot come 2026 or 2027. That is, I say 2026 if the National Assembly amends the Electoral Act, or 2027 if it remains the way it is. Governor Siminalayi Fubara will definitely pick anybody at the post because he's supporting the candidate and people love this man. In the last 8 years, this man said they built, excuse me, he said they built how many flyovers, how many bridges? What of human capital development? Zero. And you ask a simple question, why are you building flyovers and why are you building bridges? Because of the pecuniary gains.
All right, Mr. Inko-Tariah, to something that you have just said, you've mentioned the word agreement, and this seems to be rearing its head every single place. This agreement between the president, Wike, and also Fubara.
So the man has said, I'm not going to contest again. Just said, I tell you,
I'm wondering, Mr. Inko-Tariah, I wanted to know from Mr. Liborous what legal basis this agreement has when it comes to the dynamics of the impeachment. Mr. Liborous, Oshoma.
An impression that made by Comrade Ruben. It is not in every case that the police says you have question to answer that the police allegation is valid. That is why, as a lawyer, as a human rights lawyer, and as a constitutional lawyer, most times when the police sends a visitation, what they do now, they will say they are inviting you for questioning, because they know in some cases when they put the reasons there, lawyers are going to analyze whether these reasons fall within a civil or criminal matter. Because if the police dabbles into a civil matter, then it clearly does not mean that you must go to police, or that once the police invites you, that means, yes, it is within their right. So in the same vein, it customally if you permit me to use that word, when the House of Assembly invites you or levy allegation, like we have seen in other cases, the Deputy Governor of Edo State, didn't the Supreme Court nullify that impeachment process? The Deputy Governor of Kogi State, didn't the court nullify the process? So does it mean that once allegations have been levied, and then we should not even be looking at it? And so those allegations, you say, I am not an insider. How do you know I'm not an insider? Then secondly, also on the issue of this agreement is agreement. The question is that Inko-Tariah asked just now is valid. We all stand on agreement is agreement. If at the point of assisting this man, you had said, you are going to do only one term, and you people sign it, they all have the agreement, they are politicians, they know how to do the agreement. You all sign it and say agreement is agreement, you will not go for a second term, and then you bring out that document when all of these issues come. I will be the first person to tell Fubara that, look, you know what? You agreed to this ab initio. You cannot renege. This man, you can't betray him. This was what you agreed to. He assisted you. But there were issues. The man became governor, and then there was a disagreement. You now say, no, he must go. By control, I bought forms for everybody. He must go, and I will not support his second term. It is within Wike's right whether to support anybody or not to support. So Mr. President brokered the peace. The first one, didn't fall through, and there was an interregnum state of emergency declared, and then from what we heard, there was another one. So if this agreement, how many agreements has Wike in himself? How many agreements has he complied with? Who didn't we? There's no way I can discuss this matter without bringing Wike, unfortunately, because he started it. There is nobody that Wike has brought to the fore that he didn't quarrel with. If I consistently quarrel with everybody, if you get to a point, people will begin to ask, is the problem truly with these people or with this singular man? That's where the issue is here. So this agreement, what is the content of this agreement to know whether it can pass through the threshold of a legal agreement, or is it an illegal agreement? Because a legal agreement cannot be binding. If we have an agreement to go and steal now, can I begin to say agreement is agreement and that it must be enforced? There are some agreements that cannot be enforced in law. So that is why they say agreement is agreement. Ordinarily, nobody is saying it. So it is not every agreement you say, yes, it must be binding in law. And then lastly, so that I yield the floor for Ruben again,
30 seconds, please.
The issue, quite quickly, while it is within the constitutional right of the House of Assembly to levy allegation, it is within my constitutional right to look at this allegation. I talked about the local government autonomy. I talked about the issue of budgeting. And then also it is within my constitutional right to look at who is beating the drum behind the scene. You can't tell me not to mention that, because in that document, Wike's name is not mentioned. But in passing the document, Wike's name is mentioned. And Mazino, anytime you see there is no thoroughfare here, that means there is a thoroughfare. That's what the speaker was clearly trying to do.
Mr. Liborous Oshoma, Mr. Inko-Tariah, Comrade Ruben, I want to say thank you very much for your insight, your experience, and your legal mind in having this conversation today. It's been fiery, and I don't think that it ends here. I think there's still much to look at, especially as the impeachment process takes on this week. Let's see where it goes. And we'll continue to follow, and we hope that if we call all three of you together again over on this show to have this conversation, that you will welcome our invitation. But for now, thank you very much for such interesting insight into the conversation.
I hope to see my brothers again.
Yes,
My pleasure always.
yes, indeed.
At your service nationwide.
Yes. Comrade Ruben, thank you very much, too. Thank you, gentlemen. Wow.
All right, then.